everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet my Houndstooth fingerless gloves. We designed them to match the Houndstooth hat and scarf, and it makes a nice set if you want to give them as a gift or maybe keep them for yourself. The neat thing about these gloves is it does not have a right or left hand. The gloves fit your right or your left and are fun and comfortable to wear. Now you can find this free crochet pattern on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. If you make the gloves as indicated by the pattern, you'll get a glove that fits about a 9 or 10 inch wrist. The pattern is super easy to adjust the width and the length, and I'll explain that as we go along. To make yourself a pair of our Houndstooth fingerless gloves, you're going to need some yarn, of course, and I'm using the same yarn that I used for my hat and my scarf so that it's a matching set. And you're going to need about 2 ounces of 2 different colors. Now I love this yarn, the acrylic yarn from Hobby Lobby, and I do recommend that you use acrylic or wool, not cotton. But if you want it to be cotton, that's fine. It's just not my preference. But you're going to need medium number 4 or worsted weight number 4 yarn in 2 colors, about 2 ounces of each color to make a set. We're going to be stitching today with our H hook. That's a 5.0 millimeter crochet hook. You'll need a needle, and then you'll need your scissors. We're going to make the band first. We'll be stitching in rows. We'll join the band together, and then we'll work up the hand portion of the fingerless glove. I'm starting with my white because that's the color I want for the band of my fingerless gloves. We'll begin with our slip knot, and then we're going to chain 13 chains. I do suggest that you stitch this initial chain just a little bit loose because we're going to be stitching in a long band and then hooking those 2 ends together. And if you stitched it too tightly, they're not going to meet up nicely. All right, so this initial chain needs to be just a little bit loose. If you struggle with stitching it too tight, you can go up to your I hook, which is a 5.50, just for the initial chain so that it is stitched just a little bit loosely. We're going to begin by placing a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. There's the first, we'll go in the second and stitch a single crochet. And then we'll stitch 1 single crochet in each of those chains across. Go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, and go through both loops. That's our single crochet. You should have 12 single crochets because we began in the second chain from the hook. Chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to be doing what's called stitching in the back loop only. We're going to be stitching a single crochet in each of those 12 stitches. The chain 1 does not count as a stitch. If you look at the top of your stitches, you'll see that there are loops on this side and loops on this side. The loops that are facing you are your front loops. The loops that are away from you are your back loops, and those are the loops we're going to be stitching in. So we're going to go right in the first back loop and stitch a single crochet, and we'll do this all the way across this row. So we're stitching 1 single crochet in each of the 12 single crochets, stitching in the back loop only. And you'll see that it forms a little bit of a ridge right there. Those loops up here are the ones we didn't stitch in. So again, we're stitching 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets across, stitching in the back loops only. I've completed that row, stitching 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets across, stitching in the back loop only. So I have 12 single crochets. We're going to chain 1 and turn. Now, if you stitch the band on your glove according to the pattern, you'll repeat row 2 for 25 more rows. And that's going to give you a band on your glove that's about 9 inches around. If you want to increase that amount, it takes 3 rows to equal 1 inch. So you can decide if you want it bigger or smaller around in increments of 3 rows. I'm going to be stitching mine according to the pattern, so I'm going to repeat row 2 for 25 more rows. And that is chain 1, turn, 1 single crochet in each single crochet across, stitching in the back loops only, chain 1, turn, and repeat. So we're repeating row 2 for 25 more rows. So I've repeated row 2 for 25 more rows, and so I have 27 rows. And this is a good place to measure to make sure that it's going to fit your wrist. All right, we're going to take the 2 ends and put them together, and that's why I was saying it's real important for that initial chain to be a little bit loose so everything lines up nicely. We'll get that tail out of the way there. Actually, that's over there. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go in this first stitch, which is a chain, and pull that loop through just to get it on this side. And now we're going to slip stitch across, sewing them together. And this row does count as a row. This is row 28. So we'll go in that first chain and in the first stitch on this side and stitch a slip stitch. Go in the chain, go in the stitch, pull the loop through, then pull that loop through the loop that's on your hook. And if your chain was too tight and it didn't line up nicely, it would make it a little bit difficult because you'd end up, even though you have the same amount of stitches, you might end up with it a little bit puckered and having to try to pull it to make it fit. Whoops, I got a little bit of a string there. Let's get that out of there. All right, looks like I got 2 more. All right, so now we're to the top. We're going to chain 1, and I want you to see how that looks. And also, this is a good place to go ahead and slip it on your hand and make sure that you get a nice fit. If it's too loose, it's not going to stay put. You want it to stay put on your wrist. And so if your wrist is, say, 8 inches, you might want to do a 7-inch wrist because you want it to stay put. And remember, yarn is stretchy, and as you wear it, sometimes it does stretch out. And so that's the way that row 28 should look, like a little tube. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to place single crochets around this band. And what we're going to do is we're going to place 1 single crochet in the end of each row. This is row 28. we did a chain 1, but we're going to go ahead and stitch right in the end of that row because we need 28 single crochets. When you're stitching in between, this one's pulled a little, but it's a good idea to go in the stitch and not the hole. You're going to have an indentation and you're going to have a ridge. So this is your indentation, then you go to the end of the ridge and stitch a single crochet. Here's the indentation. Try to go through those stitches or you end up with a hole at the end of each of those rows. And we want it to look nice and tidy. So we're going to place 1 single crochet in the end of each row, and you need to have 28 single crochets. If you added or subtracted rows, make sure that you have an even count in order for the houndstooth pattern to work. All right, so you may have to add or subtract a row in order to make sure you have an even amount of stitches for your houndstooth pattern to work, because it works on increments of 2 stitches. So keep that in mind when you're adding and subtracting rows. I've stitched all the way around the top of my glove on the ends, making sure I have 28 single crochets. I'm going to join to my first single crochet with a slip stitch. I'm going to leave my white yarn attached and I'm going to bring in my red yarn. And now we're going to do the rows of houndstooth. And so I'm going to bring in my red, snug that down, and again I'm leaving my white yarn attached. I'm going to begin with a single crochet in the first stitch, and then I'm going to stitch a double crochet in the next stitch. Single crochet in the next, double crochet in the next. And so I'll be moving all the way around the edge of my glove, stitching single, double, all the way around, just like we did in our hat and scarf, where we alternated the single crochets and the double crochets. And that's what helps make it look like a houndstooth. So I'll continue working around, single crochet, double crochet in the next, single crochet, double crochet in the next, working all the way around the edge of my glove. I've stitched all the way around, single double with my color 2, which I'm using red. My last stitch is a double crochet. My first stitch on the beginning is a single, and so I'm going to join to that single crochet with a slip stitch, and then I'm going to bring my white one back in and leave the red still attached. We're going to be carrying the yarn up under on the back side, just like we did with the hat. All right, so my first stitch here is a single crochet, so I'm going to chain 3, and that chain 3 is going to count as my first double crochet. Then we're going to single crochet in the double crochet. Then we'll double crochet in the single crochet. And that's the way the pattern for the houndstooth works. We're still alternating double crochets and single crochets, but we're making sure that our single crochet is stitched in a double crochet and our double crochet is stitched in a single crochet. And that's what gives us that houndstooth look. You'll still have 28 stitches. They'll just be the opposite of what we did the previous row. Now, one thing to remember here at the beginning, make sure you do your color change before you do your chain 3, because the chain 3 counts as our first double crochet. And if you did your color change, if you did your chain 3, then your color change, you would have one stitch the wrong color. All right, so I'm going to continue on around, stitching singles in my doubles and doubles in my singles all the way around for for the houndstooth look. I've completed that row, stitching my singles in my doubles and my doubles in my singles with my color 1 or white yarn. My last stitch here is a single crochet. My first stitch on this row was our chain 3, so I'm going to join to the top of that chain 3 with a slip stitch, and again I'm going to change colors. We're going right back to color 2. Alrighty, so our first stitch here is a chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. So we're going to single crochet right in the top of that chain 3. There we go. So our next stitch is a single crochet, so we're going to stitch a double crochet. And so basically we're doing what we did on this red row. We're leaving our yarn attached, carrying it up on the inside, because we don't want to have to cut and reattach our yarn and then weave it in every time. This makes a nice, neat inside of our glove, and we don't have to do a bunch of weaving in. So on this row, we're repeating what we did on this row. Single crochet in the double crochets in the single crochets, working all the way around. And you can really see that houndstooth pattern popping out. It's one of my favorite stitches. I'm going to continue working around, stitching my double crochets in my singles and my single crochets in my doubles, just like we did on the previous red row. I've completed this row. I joined to my first single crochet. I'm going to bring back in my white yarn, and on this row we're going to be forming the thumb hole where our thumb comes through for our fingerless gloves. So we're going to go ahead and chain 3. This counts as our first double crochet. We're going to single crochet in that next double crochet. Then we're going to double crochet in the next single crochet. Then we're going to chain 5. We're going to skip the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This brings us to this single crochet over here. So we're going to double crochet in that single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches we skipped, and we chained 5. And now we're going to go back to repeating the pattern that we've been doing. We double crocheted in that single crochet, so we'll single crochet in the next double crochet, and then we'll continue to repeat single double the rest of the way around our glove. Always remember to put your single crochets in your double crochets and your double crochets in your single crochets to keep the pattern for the houndstooth stitch going. I completed the houndstooth pattern the rest of the way around, and here's where we did those first 3 stitches, our chain 5 and our skip 5. Alright, so I joined to my chain 3 with a slip stitch. I'm going to bring back in my color 2, which is my red. The first stitch is at chain 3, so I'm going to stitch a single crochet right in the top of that chain 3. There we go. Then I'll stitch a double crochet in the single crochet. I'll stitch a single crochet in the double crochet. Now we're going to have to continue this pattern across. So we stitched a single crochet in the double crochet. So in the next chain we're going to stitch a double crochet. then a single crochet, a double crochet in the next chain, a single crochet in the next chain, a double crochet in the next chain. So there's our 5 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then our next stitch is a double crochet, so we're going to single crochet in that double crochet. And that's how we formed the thumb hole. And then we'll continue on around stitching our double, whoops, put that in the wrong spot there, stitching our double crochets in our single crochets and our single crochets in our double crochets like we've been doing. And by doing what we did with that chain 5, skip 5, and then stitching regular, we formed a spot for our thumb for our fingerless glove. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and continue around stitching our pattern of single double till I reach back around. So I completed this row around. I joined to my first single crochet. I'm going to bring my white yarn back in and chain 3. And what we're going to do for the next 2 rows is we're just going to repeat what we did down here. A row of white and a row of red, alternating single double around. So I'm doing my white row. I'll work all the way around, join, change colors, and do the red row. I completed those last 2 rows, and at this point we're going to be adding a trim. And so if this is for you or for someone else, you might want to add more length if maybe they have a longer hand or longer fingers or just like it a little bit longer. You can continue to repeat these last 2 rows for more length if needed. I'm not adding any more length to mine. I have a shorter hand, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my scissors, and I'm going to cut off my red yarn because I'm going to do the 2 trim rows in white. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that white and bring it back in. And I want you to show you the inside again, because all we're going to have to do with the red is weave in 1 down here and 1 up here. And we'll do the same with the white. We'll only have 2 that we have to weave in, the one here and then the one we end on. And it makes it so much nicer to carry that yarn up on the inside of the glove. Alright, so we're going to go in that first stitch and stitch a single crochet, and then we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. And I do suggest that you kind of tighten your tension up just a smidge, not a lot, just a little bit, so that it lays nice and pretty and fits nice in your hand. You don't want your glove to be gaping so cold air or snow maybe gets up inside of there. Now I know this is a fingerless glove. It's intended for driving or texting or being on the phone, but they also are very warm even though your fingers are showing. Alright, so I'm just going to continue around stitching 1 single crochet in each stitch around. I completed that row, stitching 1 single crochet in each stitch around. I'm going to join to my first single crochet with the slip stitch. I'm going to chain 1 just to get me up on top, and then I'm just going to stitch 1 single crochet in each single crochet around. And this is just to give us a nice edge on our glove. I don't do any fancy stitches. I don't do any embellishments or anything on this glove. because I want that houndstooth pattern, again, like I said with the scarf and the hat, to be the star of the set. Now, if you want to add some buttons, ribbons, bows, pom-poms, whatever you would like, you certainly can, because we all like different things. So I'm just going to continue around, stitching 1 single crochet and each single crochet around. So I've stitched that row of single crochet all the way around. I'm going to join to the first single crochet with a slip stitch, cut my yarn, go in that next stitch, pull the loop to the inside, and tie that off. Now I do need to get my needle here and weave in these ends, but I'm telling you, I love being able to draw that yarn up or carry that yarn up on the inside of my glove, because it just gives it a much neater appearance than having to weave in every one of those ends. Alright, so I'm going to tidy up my glove. Get all the ends all taken care of. So here's the glove that we just made. Here's the one I made to go with it. And one thing to note is fingerless gloves like this do not have a right and left. This glove can be worn on the right or left hand. Aren't they cute? I love them, and I can't wait to wear them with my hat and my scarf.